Thank you, Madam Speaker. We're here today to watch the Liberals and Conservatives come together to defend price gouging against Canadians in order to defend what they're claiming is a free market, all the importance of the free market. It's not a free market. The telecom market in Canada is a constructed market that is protected. And it's protected for the interests of companies who make the highest profits in telecom services in the world, and while delivering the highest cost per consumer. So I'd like to begin by talking about two places. One is Rwanda. When my daughter was working in Rwanda, she contacted me on her cell phone. And I said to her, wow, it must be really expensive to contact us in Canada from Rwanda. And she said, I get better download speeds and download rates in rural Rwanda than I get in downtown Ottawa. Well, I was quite taken aback by that. So I'll take you to another place, Madam Speaker, a place you know well, Northern Ontario. Now, I don't know if the Conservatives and Liberals know that Highway 11 and Highway 17 are part of the Trans-Canada Highway route. Yeah. That's where hundreds of millions of dollars of goods move every day. It is the national transportation corridor. So imagine the shock of a couple who invest in a business on the Trans-Canada Highway and are told in 2018, sorry, we can't give your business cell phone service. And then you go to the big telecom giants who serve the area and they say, well, you know, there's no business case for serving these people. And what we've been hearing from the Conservatives today is it's very, very important to gouge consumers. That's how the beauty of the free market works. If we rip people off, if we make them pay more money, then the magic of the market is that the telecom capitalists will just reinvest all that and help all rural, and they said they'll help Indigenous people. I have never seen in the history of Canada the telecoms help any Indigenous community unless the government is putting the money up. So that's the market we live in. We live in a market where it's the taxpayers who put the money in for the broadband expansions. It's the taxpayers who pay through the nose time and time again for the price gouging that goes on. As my honourable colleague from Essex pointed out, if you don't think it's possible to get better rates, all you got to do is call Bellis Rogers Bellis Rogers and say you're quitting their service. And oh my God, they'll do backflips to give you lower prices, because I talk to seniors who are having to give up their phone coverage because they can't afford to pay it, and they phone me and they're so shocked at how willing Bell was to give them such a much better rate. But they wouldn't have gotten that if they hadn't threatened to quit. So what does that mean for our economy? We've tried to build an economy that is a digital world-class economy, and yet Canadians have the lowest data use of pretty much any Western country. The only countries that use less wireless services than us is the Czech Republic, Portugal, Germany, Belgium, and Greece. We had a period where people will tell you that they don't want to use their cell phone. They're not sure if they're covered. They don't want to know what the extra costs are. So we have some of the lowest usage of phones, and yet we pay the highest rates. Now, so let's talk about what gouging means, because it seems to be a real confusing thing to Liberals and Conservatives. They're trying to find, they want apples to apples. So on a 2 gigabyte plan where you pay about $75 a month Canadian for a 2 gigabyte plan on your phone, and you can still get gouged on top of that. In Paris, you pay $30. Rome, 24. Now, they might say, oh, that's not really fair. It's different in Europe. So let's compare a similar size country with a similar size population, similar size large rural regions. Australia. Australians pay $24 and $70 a month on average for 2 gigabytes. And in Canada, we're paying $70. And the Conservatives and Liberals would tell us, well, that's the beauty of the free market. No, that's the beauty of Liberals and Conservatives hanging out day after day with the telecom lobbyists. Madam Speaker, folks back at home might not know, but you can hardly walk down the halls of Parliament without bumping in or tripping over a telecom lobbyist because they don't want government to address the inequities that we're seeing, and they want government to continue to protect this protected market that has allowed them the highest profits anywhere in telecom. So in terms of total revenue per gigabyte, Canada is 70 times higher in revenue than India, which has pretty much 1 billion people paying into it. Now they might say, well, that's not apples to apples. Well, then let's go to Finland, which is also a northern climate. The telecom revenues in Canada is 23 times higher than Finland. Wow. And you're telling me they can't give us a break on our phones? That it'll somehow break them? That it'll somehow destroy the digital economy? If they weren't allowed to gouge that 23 times higher than what people in Finland have? Because if you look at their success rate, where 63% of people in rural Canada do not have access to high-speed broadband. And the Liberals think they've done something great, while the Conservatives, they took the $17 billion spectrum auction and spent it on everything but reinvesting in a modern digital economy. We have 14% of highways and major transportation routes that don't have access to LTE wireless services. If you get up into the north, you get into much higher rates in terms of what people do not have access to. And Madam Speaker, you know, phones, they're not luxury items anymore. They are essential. We have government moving to all online services, and yet they will not deliver proper rural broadband or proper rates that people can afford to pay to be able to even access services of this government. So what are we talking about in terms of a vision? Well, the New Democrats have been saying all along that the spectrum auction is the greatest opportunity to reinvest in a truly digital economy. That we protected the telecom dataopolies for so long that if they're going to have a protected market, then they're going to have a market that's fair. And that market is going to end the price gouging, and we are going to put the caps on, because the Liberals won't and the Conservatives won't, because they will look after the friends of big business time and time again, and they will continue to leave ordinary Canadians behind. And we will put the investments in a truly digital economy, because that is where the future lies. It's not in protecting the insider friends of both the Liberals and Conservatives. It's about protecting ordinary Canadians. It's about protecting seniors. It's about making sure that when you drive on a northern highway, you have access to telecom service. Hey, not just the northern highway. I mean, you can get 30 kilometers outside of Ottawa and have your service cut off. How do you explain a first world country where 30 clicks outside the nation's capital, you can have your cell phone die out? That is the lack of vision from the last 15 years that we've seen under Conservative and Liberal governments, and we're going to change that. And it will begin by taking on the telecom giants and making sure that we have accessible, fair service at a fair price for Canadians.